Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. I figure it's high time for me to go ahead and make another video for everybody to join in, and if you found value in this last video, I'm really glad. I had a great time doing it. I've had a great time doing all these other videos. This last video that I did had over 1,300 views, which was really awesome, and I was super happy about that. You know, it means to me that people are finding value in it, and I love that. I love to share. If you care to, you know, go ahead and share this video. I've got the settings set on public. I'll also be archiving it on YouTube, so you guys will be able to find me there. Hey, I see somebody commented, great hat. Yeah, thanks. About this hat, I have to thank Uncle Benny for this hat. This hat is absolutely one of the coolest hats I have ever owned. And yeah, it's very festive, you know, ho 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 all around, but check this out. Oh yeah, so I figured I'd share that with you guys today too. So that's gonna stay on. It might be a little distracting, but oh well. So anyways, yeah, so like I was saying, I'll be making more videos to come. Hopefully in the new year I'll be able to have a little bit better camera setup down here, and actually have some you know, more camera angles, allow people to see exactly what's going on in the flame. But for right now, we're making do with this phone thing. So today I'll be making a marble, and there's a lot of different marbles that you can make, a lot of different techniques. This technique was actually featured in the latest edition of The Flow, which is an industry magazine for lamp workers. And here's an example of something like the marble that I'll be making. He's a skull marble, so you can see in there he's got his eyes, and that's just the backside view right there. Got to put him up in his little bag. I just bought some little velveteen bags. I was thinking, you know, how cool is it that I get to sit here and make things that are like special enough to go in a little velvet bag. You know, it's pretty cool to me. Also, if you guys notice in the description, I put kind of a topic for discussion down there, and you know, I think it's really fun to talk about and to think about, you know, different things, you know, kind of food for thought, philosophical questions, etc., etc. So we might get into some of that today, and I'll try to do my best to explain as we go along just exactly what I'm doing. Before I start, I'll just kind of briefly overview some of the tools I'll be using. This right here is a marble mold. It's a big hunkin' chunk of graphite, and this was given to me by one of my good friends and teachers last Christmas, actually, for my Christmas present last year. So, and the way this works is the marble shape is actually formed on the rim. The cavity itself is just there to allow the marble to sit on the rim and spin. So the gather that I make, I'll be using the next size smaller to finish up the rim. And this will be down on the bench, and again, you know, my setup isn't quite perfect as of right now, but I think you guys can see it somewhat in the camera angle, in the camera shot. The other thing that I'll be using material wise, I'll be using a chunk of solid borosilicate glass. This is 26 millimeter clear borosilicate, and I've taken some off of it. I'll clean this up. I also went ahead and wiped this all down with Windex to get any dust off. Dust will create, you know, it's an impurity, and it'll create kind of small bubbles. So I'll be taking that, welding it onto my handle. I've also got a variety of punties, and if you guys remember, punties are just temporary handles, and these punties are actually made on the end of hollow tubing, and there's a couple of reasons that you want to do that. Well, one is, you know, it's the diameter of this tubing is nice. It's a good feel in my hand. I can hold onto it, and it's a solid handle. And the other reason is that the nature of that profile, that shape, is very, very strong. It doesn't want to flex at all. So that's a good tip for you marble makers out there, or beginners. If you want to, make marbles and you want to kind of have a really strong handle, you can use a piece of tubing. The last punty I'll be using has a little indent right in the middle there, and there's a specific name for that type of punty. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the reason for that is that it's a pretty strong connection, but you want it to be less surface area, so when you finish the marble, the very last punty, you're not really going to have a chance to polish it so much in your marble mold. You can a little bit, but I'll be using a hand torch down here and polishing that last little bit up. And let's see, I'll be backing this marble with Illuminati. I'll be using some silver to fume the inside of it. Illuminati is a color for you guys that aren't glass blowers or are into the glass thing. Here's that color, Illuminati, and it's a UV reactive color. This is my skull ring that I'll be using. It's just on a vice grip here. And another really key super tool for this is a yoke roller. And actually, as a matter of fact, Christmas, well, etc., etc., I got my Christmas presents. Usually what I ask for Christmas is like glass blowing tools, because they're expensive, and it's something that I'm into. Well, this yoke roller was also given to me for Christmas. I believe that was last year. So anyways, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, this setup is a little bit kind of elementary, but we'll see how that camera angle. Yeah, you guys can't see the flame when I put that there, but you won't be able to see anything in the flame anyways. In the future, what I'm hoping to do is have a couple of cameras, one at this angle and then one above the torch with a filter on it, and hopefully have them on like a little kick switch, so you'll be able to see what I'm doing in the flame. But we're just gonna have to make do right now with what we have. So yeah, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna clean up the end of this little or this big rod here. And one of the things about making marbles is you really want to try to keep everything as optically clear as you possibly can. Professional marble makers and marble collectors are keenly aware of any flaws in the marbles. And one thing that'll make a flaw quicker than anything is dirty glass. And it's a fairly easily remedied type of a problem, right? You just make sure that your glass is clean. Another thing, if we were going to get really, really persnickety about this, any little surface scratches on this glass will also cause, very, sometimes almost imperceptible air bubbles, and that's considered to be undesirable in a collectible marble. Sometimes glass blowers will actually use trapping air to their advantage, and as a part of the design. And if that's the case, then obviously what I just said it kind of doesn't apply in that circumstances. But even then, even if there's going to be an air trapped element to your marble, you want the air to be trapped where you want it to be, and not necessarily have scuzzy bubbles, trapped within your marble. So anyways, I'm just cleaning up both of the ends of these things so that I'll be able to connect them, have a nice clean connection. Yeah, so in previous videos we kind of talked a little bit about solid work versus hollow work and just the different kind of flavors of lamp working, and this would be considered solid work technique, right? Because there's no air that I'm going to be putting into this. I don't have a tube that I'm going to be blowing into, and so it's a solid work. That's kind of makes sense, right? Logically, you think solid work, that means the damn thing's going to be solid. So good solid connection with my handle here. I had the pleasure of having one of my friends and I guess kind of protege over the other day, and I got into a marble making groove, and I made I think 3 marbles that day, and it's kind of interesting. Solid work is a very different animal in a lot of ways than hollow work. And he's like, "Are you gonna make something with it? Are you gonna make anything besides marbles?" And I was sitting here thinking, I might do something that's hollow, but I decided to just keep on with the solid work that day. And the reason for it, logically, is I kind of was into that technique at that time. That was the thing that I was doing. And there again, it's one of those situations, for somebody that might just be starting out. Maybe one of the tips that I could offer is, you're working on something, work on one type of thing in a day. And that's been helpful for me. What I've found usually is if I switch back and forth between a whole bunch of different colors, or, if I'm doing marble 1 minute and, making an ornament or a pipe the next minute, I kind of get lost in all of that. And, so usually what my days look like is I'll sit down and say I'm making a production pipe. I'll sit there and I will make as many of one color of that production pipe in that day. And the first one is like, oh yeah, okay, so it was a little bit challenging, and the second and the third, is a lot quicker and easier because, oh yeah, I remember how to work this cobalt tubing, or, oh, I remember how to make this type of marble. So, if you can, it just seems more efficient, and of course, as glass blowers, we're hard-headed, so, don't listen to me at all. Do what you're going to do and figure it out, and, when you realize I'm right, just let me know. Or maybe I'm wrong. I could very well be wrong. I don't claim to be an expert, and certainly everybody has their ways and their techniques of working. So, yeah, so what I just did, again, is I just created myself a blank, basically, and you guys can see it, and ignore the welds. This is all crummy and nasty. It doesn't have to be perfect, though. It just has to hold on. I'm going to be using this part of the glass, and this part of the glass is pristine. That's what I'll be using to make the marble here. So, anyways, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to be gathering this glass. I'll pull it back onto itself and create a gather is what it's called. So anyways, I'll be thinking sometimes, and one of the things I like about this Facebook Live thing, and kind of doing videos in general, or even just talking, is I like thinking about, different things, and, sometimes I'm like, I'll sit there and upstairs and I'll be thinking, what could I talk about next? And it's really kind of inspiring. And one of the things that I've thought about quite a bit is this idea of stored energy. And, I was kind of riffing on that in my mind the other day about, how we store energy as humans. I was thinking about that in terms of money, in that context of money. Money to me is nothing really but stored energy. I do this thing, my energy goes into X thing. If I'm a lawyer, my energy goes into, being a lawyer. And for that energy, you're giving me this energy storage device called money. It's the exact same thing for me as a glass blower. But what's interesting about it for me is that there's a lot of different things about blowing glass and being a glass blower for a living that has to do with energy storage. As you well know, this torch is extremely hot. It's running a bunch of oxygen and propane through it. And those things are stored energy, right? The purified oxygen, it took energy to create that. The propane, exact same thing. It took energy to create that. A lot ancient energy, actually. So it's kind of interesting in that way. So when I start thinking about that, I think about stored energy. And so then, we can kind of expand that if we're talking about glass, and we can look at an individual piece of glass and look at that as a piece of stored energy. That somebody somewhere took the time to create this thing, and they put energy into it. And there was other energy that was put into it in the process. Just the fact that we have glass itself, if we think about where glass comes from, there's a natural glass called obsidian, and that's stored energy from the earth. That is a volcanic glass. If we think about commercially available glass, there again, somebody somewhere in the factory had to have a giant cauldron of silica sand and other chemicals, and maybe they used natural gas to fire the furnace, or maybe they used electricity, but they took this energy that they had stored and they created glass with it. So just the raw glass in and of itself is stored energy. Energy it's all around us. So I think that's a kind of an interesting way to look at things. And I also think it's really worthwhile in expanding that thought process into more of the metaphysical, spiritual realm. And I think there's a lot there to kind of be discussed. So there's something else to think about. This stored energy spiritually. How do we store spiritual energy? What does that look like? So it's kind of fascinating, I'm so glad that everybody loves my hat. It's pretty awesome. All right, ready? Smoosh, smush. So that's the negative side. You guys won't be able to see through in the positive side. And I'm gonna have to put this aside. I'm gonna kind of let it cool. And I'm gonna make my gather for my color to back this thing. So I kind of do it, I'm not super fussy at this step in the game, because this is just clear glass with an image pressed into it. It's pretty much stable. Now watch it, crack on me, but as far as I'm concerned, and the ones that I've made, it's stable at this point. When I go to put a backing on it, I'm gonna have to keep it hot, because there's gonna be air trapped inside, in between the layer of the backing and the clear glass. So, talking about energy storage, spiritual side of that, what does that look like? What does that mean? How do I store spiritual energy? So this is what I was riffing on, kind of sitting by myself, thinking, I was thinking about, how do I store spiritual energy? One of the things that I try to do is I try to help where I can, and then I started to think, helping people, right? That's a way that I store spiritual energy. And as a matter of fact, it gives me more back than what I ever put into it. And I started to think about kind of the absolute ultimate thing with energy. If you asked a mechanical engineer, say, what's the holy grail of mechanical engineering? They might tell you it's a perpetual motion machine. And perpetual motion machines have been tried and failed, every single time. If you ever are on YouTube, you'll see, perpetual motion machine invented, and it's total BS. And there's a reason for that. It's literally physically impossible to get as much or more energy out of a machine as you've put into it. And there's, the physics behind that, there's friction, there's drag, there's all kinds of reasons why it's literally physically impossible for that to occur in the physical realm. But I got to thinking about, okay, so if I'm storing spiritual energy, what would be the ultimate expression in terms of, what would be the holy grail of that? Is there a perpetual motion machine for my spiritual energy? And to me, that's kind of deep, with my crazy hat on. That's deep. Maybe I should put on a tinfoil hat. But, so anyways, I started thinking about that. And, one of the things that I know is true for myself is that, my spiritual energy perpetual motion machine is helping people. And I don't say that, to be a braggart. I honestly, don't really talk a lot about it. But the reason that I say that is, there again, the idea of me doing some of these videos is, maybe somebody gets something out of it. And, sure, you guys could sit here and watch me blow glass, but you could sit there and watch anybody blow glass. Maybe there's something else that I could be doing in these videos. So, this idea of this spiritual perpetual motion machine kind of has been floating around my head. And let me tell you, in our society, in a lot of ways, we're all about making money and what's in it for me. And one of the things that I've learned in my life is that the only thing that happens when I give back to somebody or try to help somebody is that I receive more than what I give. And if I look at it, a perpetual motion machine, that's the goal. I'm trying to get out more than I give. And that's the only thing I've ever found in life that's like that. I've not found anything else in life that's like that. We talk about Christmas time, spirit of giving, etc., etc. That's a really good thing for me to be thinking about this time of year, I think. So, perpetual motion machine of spirituality, and, kind of in the metaphysical plane might be, helping somebody. Try it out. You might find that you like it. And I'm sure a lot of my friends and people that are going to watch this video already know that to be true for themselves. And, and if it doesn't work, what have I lost? Maybe a little bit of time. I'm not talking about giving people money necessarily. I'm talking about, helping where I can, and it's really the coolest thing. I'll give you guys an example. So anyways, now it's time to put some silver fuming on the inside of this guy, on the inside of this blank. So I've got my flame turns to a reducing flame. I've got my silver here, and just gonna spray some of that silver on there. Hold your breath, y'all. putting a whole bunch of silver on there. So you can see it. Now it's like almost a mirror finish. And a lot of that stuff that's on the outside that won't be encased, in the process of shaping, it'll be burned off. So anyways, now time to get my backing ready. Try to keep this guy a little bit warm so everything will stick together. One of the tricks that I've found with this type of marble is you really, once you push that image into the marble, you really don't want to get it super hot, because then you'll start to melt off some of the details that you put in there. So, but the trick is to have it a little bit warm, I think, and then to have your backing glass super hot, like super. And I've never backed one of these with Illuminati, so we'll see how it all goes. Okay. Now at this point, it's absolutely critical that I get heat into this darn thing. Oh, like I was saying, it's critical that I get heat into this darn thing and keep it hot from now on. So anyways, yeah, I really wish you guys could see inside the flame. I've started taking steps to figure out, okay, you know, what's it going to take to, you know, to make this shop into like a online teaching studio-esque kind of a thing. So, you know, stay tuned for future videos. I did set up a Patreon account and set up a YouTube account. I thought, you know, maybe if this thing turns into something, you know, people will decide that they, you know, want to support and, you know, maybe give a little bit of money. It's not, you know, absolutely critical at this point. But, you know, I've really enjoyed doing the videos. It's been a lot of fun. The other thing, you know, if you're watching the video and you're enjoying it, you know, consider maybe buying a gift for somebody or buying something for yourself. You know, I know a lot of my friends that are watching right now are they're already glass blowers, you know, and that's fine. But if you're just seeing this and you're thinking, oh man, I'd like to buy something cool and handmade and support a local artist, or by all means, you're more than welcome to patronize Cap Glass. You know, just had to throw a little plug in there. So anyways, I'm just kind of roughing out the shape a little bit down here on this marble mold. Let me see if I can't move that marble mold over a little bit so you guys might be able to see it. Yeah, so stored energy. Storing energy. You think about nature, a lot of things in nature will store energy, you know. You got bees and everything does. Squirrels, you know, freaking manatees and walruses and stuff. They store energy in the form of fat. So energy storage is important, you know. I think thinking about it is important. I also have found, in terms of money, and, you know, money matters, looking at it as an energy storage device, and that being what it really ultimately is is also helpful. It kind of takes any kind of emotional, or potentially, kind of obsessive thought out of it. Oh, this is just the way that I'm storing energy, right? It kind of takes away a lot of the, crap that we might associate with money and money matters, money problems, It's just a way that our society and our world has decided to store energy. We've all agreed on it, more or less. We were born into the society with that being the norm, but as of right now, currently, we're all agreeing on that being our energy storage means, and that, who knows? It could change, I mean, it is what it is right now, so anyways. And so I've got the back half of this marble just about where I want it. I might go back into that mold one more time and go back into the flame one more time to just clean up any tool marks in there, but I've got it just about where I want it. I don't know if you guys can see that marble mold. I think you can, actually. And so there's a lot of different types of marble molds you can get. I like this one because my friend gave it to me and it was free. It's like the best kind. What's the best kind of marble mold? The free kind. Now let's see. Let me make sure I have a nice long punty here. I think one of the most challenging things about making marbles is making them perfectly round with no flaws. That's really tough. Oh, I think this one's going to be really cool, guys. Anybody has any questions, you feel free to ask. I'll do my best to keep track of comments and answer the questions as we go along. Oh yeah, this guy's going to be really cool. I can see inside. And he's looking pretty sharp. Oh, one of the things I wanted to mention, in the previous video that I did, I was kind of talking about flame characteristics some. And the flame characteristics in making hollow work and solid work are really two different animals. In hollow work, generally you want a nice brushy flame, a flame that's going to sit there and wrap around whatever you're working. And in this application in solid work, you really want a driving flame. You want a punch, they call it punchy or driving flame. Something that's not so brushy, something that's really focused and sharp, that'll really just punch it in there. You want to get your, since you're working a big, solid mass of glass, you want to get the frickin' heat in there. We're not trying to play around, be all lackadaisical about getting the heat into this thing. And since it's a mass, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of heat to do that. This particular style, this particular brand of torch, the GTTs, are really well known for their punchiness. It could actually be challenging sometimes to sit and make something that's very thin and hollow with this particular type of torch. It's not impossible, And they also have some different models now that use compressed air to kind of make the flame even more brushy. But it is, this particular type of torch is really very well suited for making marbles, making solid sculptures. It has a lot of punch, and it's really a great, all-around tool. You can do anything you wanted to with it. It's just a matter of getting the technique down and everything else. The other thing that's great about having a real punchy flame is, for somebody that's making production pieces, it melts the glass really quickly. More quickly than any other torch that I've ever used. This particular brand, GTT, melts glass extremely quickly, which then translates into more money at the end of the day if you're able to use that to create more product. So, time is money. Stored energy. Make sure I'm keeping this thing kind of in the camera shot. Ooh. He's a Christmas time skull. Making marbles takes a little while. Sometimes you might see somebody's, got marbles for sale and they want $150 or $200 or $1,000. But you got to realize that, that marble might have taken quite a while to make. And also, the other thing about kind of being an artisan and a craftsman and an artist is, it might have taken me 50 marbles of messing up to get this one that works pretty well, that looks pretty good. So that's the other thing that you'd be paying for in that circumstance. So looking pretty good to me. Really rounding out. I can still see there's a couple little waves in that shape, and I want to get all those waves out. As one of the things that I've been learning as I've made more and more marbles is when you have it on one punty, you want to do as much as you can before you switch punties and kind of have to go back, so you don't have to go back and forth as much. That just creates more work and takes more time, and also more opportunities for your marble to break or fall off of a punty. So, while I have it on this one punty, I'm going to do my best to make sure that when I flip it 90 degrees that I'm not going to have to go back and flip it back and back and back. So, and the other way that I check for flaws is I have two fluorescent lights in the shop here, and I look at the reflection, and if that line of light deviates at any point while I'm spinning the marble around and looking at it, then I know that's not perfectly smooth. It needs to be worked some more. So I just found a little spot in here that had just a little bit of lump. To the naked eye, it looks almost perfect. But when you really start looking at it, You know. Got my reflection. All right. Getting off any tool marks on here. Make sure I got a heat base in here. Now this next step, I'm going to change my punty around. I'm going to go 90 degrees about. And when I do this, I'm not going to really have a chance to explain it. So I'm going to keep this, while this one's still hot and moving around, I have to break the other one off. One of the scariest parts about making marbles to me is switching punties. It's a really good opportunity for you to drop a, 2,000 piece of hot round glass in your lap, or on the floor, or on your bench, or whatever. So it can be a little bit crazy making sometimes. It's a challenge, It's always a challenge with glass. Let me tell you, there's not much easy about making glass. At least not in my experience. It's worthwhile, it's fun, but it ain't easy. Especially when you're kind of first starting out, learning a technique, or oh yeah, we sexy now. One of the things I like to say, we sexy now. Sometimes, you might be blowing glass, or I might be blowing glass, or working on a car, trying something, challenging myself. And when I achieve it, I think, I'm the sexiest mofo alive. I don't say mofo usually, but we're trying to keep this PG, Makes you feel accomplished, like you did something today, Maybe I should pay attention to this hot piece of glass I got on the end of this rod. Again, when I was saying earlier in the videos, we just use the rim of these marble molds. The cavity is there so that the marble can spin on the rim. So this particular mold cavity that I'm using for this marble is smaller than the actual marble's diameter, because I'm just using the rim. I'm just checking it for flaws, guys. Maybe I should be doing that on camera. Okay, I think we're ready for our final punty on this one. This one turned out to be fairly, well, let me not say anything and jinx myself. Let me just concentrate on what I'm doing for a second. I'll come right back to narration. It's just barely on there. I want it to be as light of a punty as humanly possible. I just need it to not come off. I want it to break cleanly. when I actually take it off of this final punty. So if you remember in the earlier part of the video how I showed you the way this punty is, where it has an indentation in it, that's so it doesn't have so much surface area, and so it theoretically should break fairly cleanly. Theoretically. Again, in this stage is critical. It's really a dance between keeping the glass hot enough to where that skull impression won't crack it, but you don't want it too hot. You know, you just want it. You want to keep a heat base in it, from my experience. So. Oh yeah, we're almost there, y'all. Do I have a website? I don't have a website currently, no. If you're interested in buying things, just private message me. Having a website is a lot of work, and since I'm a one-man band, I haven't really found the time for it. With marbles and stuff, I might start posting some of these on a Facebook group called Black Market Marbles. I really haven't had a lot of success with online sales, but also if you're local to the Atlanta area, just private message me. Maybe we could get together. That's usually a fine way to do it. Ultimately, I would love to have a little retail shop set up, but I'm not quite there yet. Okay, so I've got some good heat in this thing. Just want to check and, triple check and make sure that everything is round and copacetic before I break it off. And it looks pretty darn round to me. Get a little bit more heat in here before I actually break it off the final punty and put it in the kiln. Okay. All right. Well, that's one tool I didn't show you guys. It's my little hand torch, which I need to get some better tips for it, because right now, as it is, it's kind of a pain in the butt to use. All right. Shock it, tap it. And this part is critical. Right now, the graphite is sucking all of the available heat out of this marble, and it's just saying, I'm gonna break. You better do this quickly, because if you don't, I'm gonna break on you. Let me tell you, there's been plenty of these that I've lost right here, just because having to polish off that final punty mark with the hand torch that keeps cutting out on you. I had an old Smith hand torch, which would never blow itself out. Gave it to a friend of mine. He had a shop fire, and he's actually a friend and a teacher. But he needed it more than I did, and it had its own problems. But I need to get one of those really nice tips for this thing. Those tips are expensive, though. They're like $150 just for the tip. So, that's pretty much got it. Shit. All right, everybody, and that's it. I gotta put this in the kiln right quick, fast, and in a hurry. well, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're seeing this that's not live, thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing in advance. Like I said, my last video got 1,300 views, which was really awesome. So, all right, let's share. Let's, sharing is caring. Christmas spirit and everything. Anyways, you guys have a wonderful Christmas, and I'll talk to you soon. We'll see you soon next time.